أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Now before I begin my talk today, may Allah increase us all in knowledge, may He protect us from the punishment of the grave, may He grant us Jannah, and may He forgive us for any of our wrongdoings. Ameen. And if there's anything I convey in a wrongful manner, may Allah forgive me first, and then may you all forgive me as well. Now, with Ramadan coming to a close, a time of reflection and purification, a blessed month that has given our ummah the opportunity to turn to Allah day and night, raising our hands up to Him in hope that He answers our du'as, standing in prostration throughout the night, pleading Allah to answer our calls, and ultimately resting our hearts in the hands of Allah, knowing that He is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, the most merciful, the most kind. And so it presents the perfect opportunity to continue our series of the stories of the prophets and end Ramadan on a strong foot with the lessons and teachings that we can implement throughout our daily lives even after Ramadan. So with that said, today inshallah we'll be talking about Prophet Zakariya alayhi salam, the significance of his story in the Quran, and how we can apply his teachings to our everyday lives. Now, first and foremost, it's important to understand just who Prophet Zakariya was. What role did he play for us? What significance did he play for us in Islam? Now, growing up amongst the Bani Israel, Prophet Zakariya alayhi salam was a righteous and respected prophet of Allah. He displayed characteristics of hopefulness, courage, and awareness of Allah throughout his life. He was the descendant of Prophet Sulaiman and became the uncle of Maryam alayhi salam throughout his life, taking care and looking after her. Now, during Prophet Zakariya's lifetime preaching to Bani Israel, they had a reputation of sticking to their characteristics of stirring animosity against each other, and more seriously, they even started initiating blasphemy against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So much so that they came to Allah, astaghfirullah, was stingy, and that Allah withheld from them. They continuously resented Zakariya alayhi salam's teachings. But being the very humble man that he was, who constantly remained thankful to Allah, Prophet Zakariya alayhi salam lived a complete life of simplicity and was the furthest one can be from extravagance, spending his time preaching Islam and the words of Allah. It is even confirmed by authentic hadith that in his free time, Prophet Zakariya alayhi salam was a carpenter in early years. Now, the Quran itself does not provide accounts of Prophet Zakariya alayhi salam's childhood or youth. Hence, the significance and the teachings of Prophet Zakariya began in his late adulthood, when he was elderly. Now, at this time, the years of teaching Islam and spreading Allah's message to the people of Bani Israel had taken their toll on Prophet Zakariya alayhi salam. He was now old, bent with age, in his 90s. But despite this, he still preached the message of Islam to the people of Bani Israel. Despite their constant resentment, he never gave up on them, for the word of Allah was too far important to let go. But his one disappointment in life, his one fear, was that he had no children, for his wife was barren. And this worried him, for that he feared that no one after him will carry out his work to continue the teachings of Islam. So would his teachings go to waste? Would the people of Bani Israel revert back to the mistreatment of Allah? The people needed a strong leader, for if they were left on their own, certainly they would move away from Allah's teachings. And so the story of Prophet Zakariya alayhi salam truly begins during one of his visits to the house of Allah, when he went to go check on Maryam alayhi salam, who was living in a secluded room at the time. And when he arrived, it was to his surprise that he found fresh fruit in her room. But nobody before him had entered the room. Keep in mind, how could this have happened? How could this fresh bowl of fruit appear in her room out of nowhere? Somehow, someone must have given it to Maryam alayhi salam. And if so, when had this happened? And so when Prophet Zakariya alayhi salam inquired, she told him that the fruit was from Allah, a blessing from Allah. And more so that she found it every single day in her room. Subhanallah. Maryam alayhi salam even told him, did he not know that Allah provides without measure for whom He wills? Does he not know that Allah is the most giving, that there is no limit to the blessings and power of Allah? Now for a prophet who had lived his life preaching Islam and the message of Allah, who hadn't been given the one thing he desired, that being his own offspring, this had sounded like a lifeline, a renewment and reminder of the endless blessings of Allah, from the one who is Al-Wahhab Al-Razaq, the giver of gifts and the provider. So could he not ask his Lord to bless him with a child in his own age with a wife who is barren? Is Allah not the most capable? Even if his wife was barren, nothing was impossible under the commandment of Allah. And so when Prophet Zakariya raised his hands to Allah, it is said in Surah Maryam that Prophet Zakariya alayhi salam said to Allah, "My Lord, indeed my bones have grown feeble, and gray hair has spread on my head, and I have never been unblessed in my calling to you, O Allah, and verily, I fear my relatives after me, since my wife is barren. So give me from yourself an heir, who shall inherit me and my teachings, and make him, my Lord, one with whom you are well pleased." And Allah subhanAllah responds, "O Zakariya, verily we give you the glad tidings of a son. His name will be Yahya, and we have given that name to none before him." SubhanAllah, look at the mercy and blessings of Allah, granting a man exactly what he desires in the blink of an eye. Even more so, Prophet Zakariya's son, Yusuf, displayed the same characteristics and perseverance and grit in times of adversity that was rooted in the same beliefs that his father had, that unshakable belief on Allah and that good will emerge from any hardship, granting a man what he yearned for his entire life up until his old age. So is Allah not Ar-Rahman, the most gracious? And yet, my brothers, even whilst having the proof right in front of us with the story of Prophet Zakariya alayhi salam, it's as if we deny Allah's power. We openly deny the blessings of Allah. We so easily give up on our du'as and supplications, not grasping the blessings of Allah, and truly understanding that there is no limit to what Allah can give. And so that brings me to the final part of my talk, which is the bittersweet moment. Because on one hand, alhamdulillah, I've had the opportunity to share this beautiful story of Prophet Zakariya alayhi salam. But on the other hand, it's also the end of Ramadan. And with Ramadan coming to an end, that means our habits and our actions are in our hands now. That intrinsic motivation we had throughout Ramadan will be no longer. And now it's up to us to continue our good habits. The old saying goes true that our future is in our hands, because the story of Prophet Zakariya alayhi salam isn't about having a child at 90 years old. It's about putting your hands up to Allah just like he did, pleading to him, even when everything had seemed impossible. It's about having hope in Allah. It's about having that immense belief in Allah's power that doesn't stop you from asking Him to answer your du'as. All Ramadan, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, we've been blessed to have the opportunity to pray to Allah, ask Him for what we want. But how many of us are going to continue to do that tomorrow, the day after that, the days, the weeks, the months, the years after that? How many of us are going to continue to keep our belief in Allah's power in our right hand and our consistency with calling out to Allah in our left? Just like Prophet Zakariya alayhi salam, what had seemed impossible to be given a child at his old age, nothing was impossible under the commandment of Allah. So my brothers, what stops us? What stops us from raising our hands to Allah and calling Him to us? We make dua for a few days, and if it doesn't happen, we give up. Is it the same going to happen to us with our salah? How many of us are going to stop coming to the masjid for Fajr, for Isha? How many of us are going to risk not even taking anything beneficial away from this Ramadan? How many of us will take this past month as just that, a month, with no importance or significance to us? The prostrating to Allah in sujood, asking Him to grant every single desire we have, will that continue? Did Prophet Zakariya not show us that patience is key? That consistency in your belief in Allah is the answer? He waited 90 years, my brothers, spreading the message of Islam, raising his hands up to Allah to eventually be given what he desired for the most. He never lost faith in Allah even when everything had seemed impossible. So how many of us are going to continue to call out to Allah? Because the real test from Allah, my brothers, is not what we did in Ramadan, but rather what we continue to do afterwards. the good habits we keep, the bad habits we remove, the halal we run towards and the haram we run away from. Those moments when we prolonged our sujood and salah, when we increased our dhikr, when we raised our hands to Allah every moment possible, continue to do those things. For Allah is with the ones who have sabr, who are patient. Allah is with the ones who do not forget about Him. And so I ask Allah to make it easy for all of us to continue worshipping Him. To continue worshipping Him with the same strength as we had throughout Ramadan. I ask Allah to give us the patience and sabr to continue raising our hands to Allah and speaking our hearts to Him. I ask Allah to make our ibadah, our iman and our taqwa of Allah even stronger than it was in Ramadan. And I ask Allah to make it easy for us to fill the rows and the masjid throughout the year. With that, Jazakallah khair for listening to my talk and giving me your time. Insha'Allah, may Allah accept from all of us and make it easy for us to continue on the straight path and implement the teachings of Prophet Zakariya alayhi salam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.